Hello, this is a quick video, my weekly video, with reflections on this week's episode, which you can listen to on Do Radio. Go to doradio.com. The show is on at different times of the day, depending on where you are in the world. So if you go to that website and look for Where To Next, you'll get all the timings. This week, I spoke to James Hollis. Now, if you've not heard of James Hollis, he's a very famous Jungian psychoanalyst, and he wrote this incredible book called The Middle Passage: From Misery to Meaning in Midlife. And when I left Unbound, a friend recommended the book, and oh, goodness me, totally changed my life. It was like a life raft. I say this in the episode because in it I discovered Carl Jung's theory of two adulthoods, which has become something that I'm super interested in, which is not entirely what the series is about, but the series is certainly, I suppose it's me showing you in real time what it's like to go on that journey. And for those who haven't come across it before, quick summary of the Carl Jung's theory is that we all have two adulthoods. Oh, you can see Winnie in the background. Hey, Winnie. We all have two adulthoods. The first adulthood is spent heading out into the world to achieve definitions of success, meaning, and contentment that we accepted from the world around us when we were young. And we're too young to sort of critically assess those definitions because it's just self-evident because of our community, our culture, our family, that that's what you do. And what happens in the decades of your first adulthood, you head out into the world to achieve them. And interestingly, it doesn't seem to matter whether you achieve them or not, but the pursuit of them teaches you that they're not yours, those definitions, and that they're wrong. And you then enter what James Hollis described as the middle passage, which is the place between the first adulthood and the second, which is an incredibly discombobulating and frightening phase of life because all the old certainties have gone. You sort of have to start again. And then your second adulthood begins, and your second adulthood is you have to kind of decide what those definitions are going to be for the rest of your life. And of course, by now you're slightly running out of time. So life suddenly starts to have a little bit more focus to it. Anyway, I interviewed James. It's actually a couple of years ago, and I've broken my rules of going to see people in person for this one because James is he lives outside Washington, D.C. I say he lives outside New York in the show, but that's wrong. He lives outside Washington, D.C. And I also recorded it 2 years ago, so it's not like a linear journey to include it, but I've included it because he's just such an interesting guy, and he talks about his own experience of the second adulthood, and he talks about some of his clients that he's written about in his books. And the reason he wrote the book, which was that he just started to notice that people from all different kinds of backgrounds all seem to be having a similar thing. They would get somewhere in midlife. And he says in the interview, if he was writing the book again, he wouldn't stress the kind of time frame so clearly. I mean, it's the midlife crisis. That's what we're talking about. That's how it's often described in a negative way. Personally, I think it's a moment of profound transformation and growth. So I see it as a positive thing. But what he describes in the book is how you go through it, what happens to you, and how to make sense of life. And he's such a lovely man, and he's so wise, and he obviously is coming at it from incredible perspective. He was 83 when I interviewed him. And yeah, no, it's an amazing interview. I felt incredibly privileged to speak to him. And I don't mind that it's not chronological, because when you hear the episode, you can see I'm very much in the middle passage. I mean, I'm not entirely sure I'm out of it completely now, but Isabel's just texted me. But I think I sort of feel like if I'm not out of it, I'm coming to the end of it, because I'm finding meaning. I'm finding meaning in this series. I'm finding the sort of creative fulfillment and this type of inquiry I'm finding incredibly exciting. And it's interesting for me now to look at this series from the perspective of where I was when I interviewed him 2 years ago, when I didn't have this on the horizon and I was very lost. And I feel much less lost now. Also got another couple of amazing people who've said yes. I told you about Ian McGilchrist last week, which is super mega exciting, obviously. But also, thrillingly, there's this amazing guy I follow on Substack called John Grigsby, and he's an astroarchaeologist. Yeah, man. He he studied archaeology and astronomy and how some of these monuments, Neolithic monuments and barrows, that are all across the countryside. He's got incredible theories about how they line up to the stars and the moon rather than the sun. Totally fascinating guy, and super excitingly, if weather permitting, I'm going to go and meet him in a place where he's actually doing a dig in a long barrow that appears in the Canterbury Tales, in Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. So that's mega exciting. Also, really, really excited. Serena, who I've forgotten her surname, but Serena from the Hoffman Process. I really wanted to speak to her, and she said yes too. I've got to figure out how to figure that out in time frames. But she's an amazing woman and has had incredible career and life. And as some of you will know, I did the Hoffman Process. I'm a huge fan of it, and I'm really excited to talk to her about how this kind of phase of life, your priorities change and you start to look for different things. And she's been on that journey, and it's a wonderfully warm and brilliant woman. And I'm also super excited to talk to her about some of the stuff I talked to Sharon Blackie about. So yes, loads going on. But yeah, this week, enjoy James Hollis. I'll be putting it on my Substack on Sunday at 9 a.m. If you can't wait, check out Do Radio. And as I say, it's been repeated 3 times a day for the rest of this week. And check out James Hollis's books, because if any of this stuff speaks to you and you're in a moment of confusion or uncertainty and you're not sure about life and you're maybe slightly losing faith in the definitions of success, meaning, and contentment that you have been pursuing in your life, James is the most extraordinary guy to help you through that phase. And it's a wonderful chat, and some really interesting stuff comes up in it. Awesome. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.